Hello everybody, this is my review of the Falco appendix holster rig. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and start by showing clear, mag empty, finger test. You can see it's clear, you can see it's clear. So the firearm that I am reviewing this for is the Sig SP2022. The light and laser that I have on my rig is the Streamlight TLR8G. This is the older generation with the side button. It doesn't really matter, but that is just for reference. This has standard height night sights. This is the newer version with the squared off trigger guard of the Sig 2022 SP. This is caliber 9mm. We do have an additional mag here, which is also clear. There are no rounds on the table. So I am doing this review today as I have gone through a pretty significant amount of holsters through my different carry pieces. And I have found that there were not a lot of holsters for the Sig 2022 in 9mm, and the ones that I did find did not accommodate for the light laser. I wanted to find an appendix rig that would allow for an additional mag carrier, and I came across Falco. I did ask them if they would be willing to send me one for review, and they did. Falco, if you're not familiar with them, is manufactured offshore. I'll put a link to them in the bottom description if I can, as well as the model for this. This particular model holster that I'm going to show you today is approximately in the $80 to $90 range, depending on how you have it set up. The one that I have here has the side mag holder, or sidecar as you would call it. It has the optics cut. I do not have an optics cut on my carry piece yet, but I plan on having one, so I asked for that to be included. I did get the suppressor height sights cut, which basically just allows a little bit more room in here, just to see the overall clearance. I did get the claw, which came with that already installed. Everything came fully assembled with the clips on there. They also sent me a additional mag carrier, which of course would go on your left, which was nice just to see some of the way that they build some of their equipment. So again, Falco provided this to me at no charge to me as a review. This is a holster that I intend to use, so I'm going to be fair and honest with my review. The overall packaging that came when this came, and it did come in about 3 weeks, even though it said that it would be about 6 to 7 weeks. Came with a nice box, came with a couple of stickers, came with just some basic packaging here, some plastic packaging, some additional tips for my claw if I want to, some information, but you don't care about most of this stuff. So anyway, came FedEx to my house. They did a great job with packaging. Everything came in great condition. The two things that I did to my holster, and I'll get into the review a little bit further, but the two things that I did to my holster to make it fit for me was I was not a fan of the amount of retention that came with the holster. Everyone likes different retention. Some people like theirs to be so loose that there is no retention. I like there to be a modest amount that requires me to physically pull it. I can be running out in the yard with my kids, but nothing falls out. So this does require a hand to pull it out. Now this is after me using my my Ryobi 18-volt heat gun to take and apply heat in this section here, as well as the back side here, and then through the light section. And I took and I inserted and reinserted, inserted and reinserted, and twisting and reinserting and taking it out. And what that did is that widened things out to give me a little bit of space. I wanted tolerance where I can pull out easily with one hand without having to hold my holster. I did not want to have to do this. When it initially came, I had to forcibly remove it. As far as the adjustments that come on this, there are 2 screws on this side and 2 screws on this side, as well as the screws that can adjust for, or can connect for your mag carrier. There is as well a rubber grommet screw for your mag carrier to tighten and loosen that. I loosened them all and I felt that everything was still too tight. So after use of my heat gun, warming things up, loosening the plastic, things did work into place. It did take effort, but I'm familiar with where I want my holster to be, so I knew what I needed to do to make it get there. It was brand new. The other thing that I added to my holster for my liking is I added the wedge. This particular one is through Tier 1 Concealment. They did not provide it. I purchased a pack of them for a couple of holsters. So I have the extra large Tier 1 wide wedge. That's what I like. My body type, I'm about 180 pounds, about 6 foot, pretty thin overall. I like to be able to have the concealment where it pushes out, which then pushes the grip into me for concealment. I live in the state of Florida. I am concealed carry licensed, but I don't want to print or show. And so with this being a full size 15 round capacity 9mm, I want to make sure that this large grip frame is concealed. So I'll quickly put this on just for showing here. Goes on much like most appendix rig holsters would go on. It, with the wedge, pushes out nicely, pushes the frame of the gun into my body enough. And now I use the extended finger groove 15 round capacity. So these are empty. So fits well, does show some, but in terms of the size of this overall rig, it actually conceals very well in the general setup that was provided. I did feel that before I put the wedge on there, and I have a little bit of a dad top here, but it did lean out a little bit when it first came. The wedge helped that, and the belt that I'm using is the groove belt elastic. It is not necessarily a gun belt, but it does a good job on providing adequate support. A stiffer gun belt would work better. However, I just can't work with the super stiff ones right now. I'm not used to it. I've been carrying a little over a year, and this is where my comfort level is. So, overall holstering and reholstering, as you can hear, there's no positive click, because you do not get positive click when you are using a light bearing. The retention is actually on the light itself, not on the trigger guard like you typically would have on a different type of holster. I will use as an example. This is a separate firearm here. This is my XDS, it's clear. For example, in my Vetter light tuck with my XDS, you hear the positive click. This is perfectly fitted, perfectly worn in. It's a well-used holster. You do not get that positive click with a light bearing holster, and I learned this before purchasing one, so this is nothing news to you, but just letting you know, you do not get a positive click. You get adequate pressure on the front and the rear, or on both sides of it, which basically pancake or pinch the overall setup. So I feel very comfortable jumping and nothing's coming out. The removal of the second mag works fine. I feel it does a good job. That did require additional twisting and heating with this to loosen things up as well. then while using the additional mag carrier, I did have to open and loosen this one up. I think it's pretty standard with new holsters that you need to fit them for your liking. Although there are always going to be adjustments, you need to fit it for you. So I think investing in a inexpensive heat gun, for me, I already had Ryobi 18-volt tools. I had already purchased the heat gun, which runs battery operated 18-volt. It was about 60 or 70 bucks. You can probably get a inexpensive wall-powered one as well. Just requires a little bit of heating up of the material, then working things in, using your fingers. If it gets too loose, you just work your fingers back in. This works well. I don't need a additional mag carrier since I do have the sidecar holster anyways, but it does a good job and it is directional. Excuse me, the additional carrier is not directional. So you could choose to carry it outside like this if you want to. Works fine. Or as I prefer it, inside. And you can choose the orientation if you want it to go rounds towards the gun. If you had it over here, you could choose to go rounds towards the gun or rounds away. It is shaped a little bit where you can see that the rounds are designed to go towards the gun if carrying inside the waistband, but it allows for either direction, which is nice. Standard, I believe this is called a foamy clip, so that works well. My comments of positive is very stable. It's a very thick plastic. This is not a cheap, thin plastic. I have some other holsters that are a much thinner plastic that I've used in the past. For example, the Crossbreed is a thinner plastic that they use on their Reckoning. The Falco plastic is thicker than the Vetter. However, the Vetter is a little bit harder of a plastic. So there are some differences in brand, and you may like one or like the other better. I did find that the more that I insert and reinsert the gun into the holster, I do find that it starts to break in the plastic as far as wearing in the edges. During the first time using it, the first wearing it around the house, I noticed some black plastic wearing off here. It wasn't the pistol getting worn, it was the pistol wearing off some of the plastic inside of the holster. And I know you can't see it very well, but there is a pretty good sheen in there, so it does protect your piece. Obviously, I care about my guns. I don't want them getting all worn off, and this has done a pretty good job so far. I'm happy with the extra large, extra wide wedge. For me, this fits well. This sticks right on there with adhesive. This is not sold by Falco, and you may not need the wedge for your body type. You may have a much more slim body type where you don't have any dad bod here, but for me, this works well. I had already recently purchased for my Springfield XDS, I had purchased a Crazy Eyes brand holster on eBay, and this does have the positive retention, but it does not have light bearing. So that's why there's positive retention. But my point in showing you this is I had already purchased some of these wedges and found that they definitely make a difference for me. The Falco has a different type of a claw than some do. I believe this is the Raven concealment here on this other holster that I have. And I don't remember the model or brand type of claw that's on this one. Comparatively, the hooks on the Falco work well. They do bite very well as far as clipping around the belt. I have a standard size belt. I don't have the 1.75 thicker belt. They're a bit rigid when comparing to the RCS style clips that a lot of the Appendix have. The RCS style Raven concealment, I believe that is. These are a little bit softer and easier to grab and a little bit looser. But I do feel like you probably could pull this if you had real tight retention. You could pull this holster off if you were not paying attention to making sure that it clips beyond your belt and onto your belt. Whereas the Falco, these are very they have a very deep clip, so it's going to hook on there well. I don't know if the claw is necessary. I've heard reviews about that the claw may not be necessary on an appendix rig because of how wide it is. I mean, this is wider than the gun itself. However, I'm happy with the setup. I think this does well. I do see that that Falco offers a couple of additional colors. I believe they offer an FDE and an olive at an additional cost. The base unit, I believe, was $79 when I was looking at it with the mag carrier. I believe it was an extra $5 for the clip, an extra $5 for the cut. Then you get to choose your light bearing model, and there are a lot of light bearing, even for a Sig 2022, which is a less than popular gun type. And you get to choose the height of your sights. I chose basically the max setup so that I can choose to add suppressor height sights if I do end up getting the optic that I want to get. So that is the overall impression of this. When I compare this holster, I'm also comparing against my, if I could just quickly take off this optic here. I only had one holster for this particular carry piece before. Again, I'm located in Florida, so having something that's comfortable in all seasons is important. So this was a Concealment Express holster that I got on eBay. You know, $30 holster. I'm sure we've all looked for holsters on eBay and found them. I added a claw. I believe this is a very similar type of claw that the Falco uses. This particular holster, because there's no light bearing, does offer retention, positive click. Not quite as much as maybe the Vetter holster would offer with that really positive click, but with any holster, you can shape it. But with the light bearing, you're not going to get the positive click. However, you can use this holster without the light, but you are not going to get any retention because, once again, that retention is all based on the light. In summary, my opinion of Falco is good. They've communicated. The rep that I've been working with, I believe his name is Martin, at Falco, has been very communicative, checking in to make sure that I'm happy with it. I let him know that the fit was not 100% perfect. He did respond. He did not put it on me saying I did something wrong. I let him know that I fit the holster for my use, and that I found it to be a good fit now after heating it. And he said I used the correct method. I think Falco is a good company. They're not a U.S.-based company, whereas I'm in the U.S. That may matter to you. That may not matter to you. But the customer service and quality that they put into their products is great. And I would recommend them to somebody when comparing against something like a Tier 1 Concealment or a T-Rex holster, which for this setup, even if they made one for mine, would probably run in the neighborhood of about 120 to 150 for what I asked for, minus special printing. I think that this is a good savings and a good value for what it is. I would encourage you to reach out to Falco if you have a model gun that may be less than popular, or just take a review on their site and see what you can find there. And that is my review of the Falco holster, and I hope this was helpful for you.